Yo, what up, people? Smith to motherfucking R here today, of course, to give you guys Coppelion episode 2 motherfucking review. No. In this episode, it was an obvious attempt to get at emotions. And it was emotional, yes, but it was a very obvious attempt. Like, and some of it didn't sort of make sense. And at the end of the day, I'm like, yo, this is fucked up. And this little girl, I'm feeling for her. And I'm also feeling a little bit for Ibarra. I am. And of course, a little bit for Ioi. Yeah, yeah. Fuck. AOI. Fuck it. I believe I called her I in the beginning. Fuck it. Anyway, Ioi. And I'm feeling a little bit, but at the same time, it was kind of just this weird moment in it, and I'll get to that. Fuck it, random fucking we're jumping around, okay. But let's just give like sort of a basic premise, okay? So they're going out to look for who again? Fucking Tycho, yeah, Tycho, because the wolves could have attacked her because she was around that one dog, and there could be more. And so they go back there, and they see that the dog has a bullet hole in its leg. And then out of nowhere comes this one, like literally, he's just holding Tycho with a gun to her head, and this dude just wearing like a fucking biosuit, and he's like, give me your bat. Where's my daughter?" or some shit like that. And basically, he gets pwned, shot in the back with like a fucking healant, and then Tycho goes and runs to go treat the dog, and apparently the whole situation was that a wolf pack came, this dog protected Tycho, and then out of nowhere came this dude and he shot this dog in the leg and then took Tycho hostage because he thought that she had information about her daughter. And it turns out, and they tell him that they can survive out here, and basically takes him back to their camp and describes the situation. And we find out that this dude basically lost his daughter, and he is currently with his new wife, and technically speaking, Miku's mother. Except Miku's real mother, his name started with a Y, and it sort of sounded like, like it was like a Miku but with a Y. It was like, fuck, anyway, it doesn't really matter. Why? Because these characters are only relevant for this episode, so I don't really give a... Anyway, the thing is, basically this dude and this woman, basically apparently this woman just taught her how to put on a suit, and the second that she did, the story is that she went out and then she tried to go visit her mother's grave. And the whole story is that they're criminals, and they used to have a food truck that would come bring them food like every week, except it stopped coming, and so they're running low on food, and so they wanted to send a SOS. But then this thing happened with their daughter, so they couldn't really do it. They had to go find her, because that's very important. And so the thing about it is, we get how they actually came into this, because the father, he's a criminal, and he escaped from prison, and he doesn't care if he goes back or gets in trouble or any of that, as long as his daughter is safe. And so kind of is the mother. Yeah, she's... And then, from there, we go into exactly what happened. And from what I get, this thing, I believe... I'm trying to figure out exactly when this has happened, because they didn't exactly give a date of when it happened, like 10 years ago or so and so years ago. But I have to assume that I'm going to ballpark it around 20. Or maybe like, ballpark it around like 20. Why I have to say that is because these people were genetically engineered in order to survive in this environment, and Ibarra said herself that she is 18 in this episode. What does that mean? Because why I'm bringing this up is because basically they escaped from that prison 6 years ago and came here. And it wasn't, and they used like that event to basically escape. And so you'd think that it was like 6 years ago this event happened, then they escaped out of prison, him and his original wife and the daughter, but then the wife died, and then he remarried. And the thing is, or the fucking thing about this shit is, so that would make me think that it happened like 6 years ago. But then what makes me always instantly contradict that is the fact that these, people who were genetically engineered to survive in this environment are 18 years old. So I have to assume that maybe it happened like 20 years ago, this event, but they were still in prison then. Apparently maybe it spiked up at some point, because I mean, it is an event that's happened and they can't fuck with it. So it could spike up at some points. But it's sort of confusing, because it makes you wonder exactly, because they use this event to plan their escape, but does that mean that they had some genetically engineered children made to survive this environment 12 years before the environment even started happening, and then they injected these children with some shit that happened from the thing, and then told them to get into this fucking situation and trained them for a couple years? Or was it the one that makes the most sense but kind of contradicts everything that the guy really said, his story, which would be that 20 years ago, these motherfuckers, 20 years ago, this catastrophic event, Pandora's fucking box, whatever the fuck you want to call it, just happened out of nowhere. And then after years of studying it and finding out about it, they found exactly what they needed to put into somebody in order to be able to make them live in that environment. And then they made these children, and then they raised them to survive and find people in this environment like 18 years later in the future. But we don't really know. That's the thing about it. We don't know. So basically they hit this spot where, because the father's with them, and they hit this spot where basically the father can no longer come along because he's like already getting short out of breath in this area, because it's like when shit spikes up and it's not very safe and it goes through their suits, and so they'll die. And so basically they continue on. In the entire time, Iowie is with this wife, and basically the wife is explaining that even though she isn't the real mother, she really cares for her, in that she was in prison, which makes me wonder again the whole thing about the mother, because the mother died 3 years ago, and this girl, she was also in prison apparently, and she killed her baby because she thought it was like a toy or a doll, and then Iowie fucking also feels like a doll a lot, and then they're having like this connection moment, and then basically she goes to take a shower, and then they go to the area and they find out and they look around and she isn't here. So what does that mean? They start to suspect, after they get this call from Iowie, that Miss Hakuoka or some shit, fuck it, the bitch left. Basically she's out, and so they assume that she is, since she's a criminal, using this little girl to not get caught, because she doesn't want that SOS to be sent out. And so if she kidnaps it, she has leverage, and then she can just, get out. They won't have to have people come with her, because then she's like prolonging the uncle or her fucking father from calling out SOS. It was like, my daughter's here, I have to go get her. But then when these people came and they're gonna actually go there, and they actually could, then she panicked, and now she's trying to get out. And so basically they trace her down, but first they go back to the dog, and he isn't there, and so they don't know where he is, but they have to find the girl first, because who knows what could happen. They all meet up, and then they give the dog her scent from her shoe, and then they fucking searching around. They're searching around, and then it's that one of those first buildings that we saw when they actually entered the giant city, and it's that leaning fucking hotel. And basically they're there, and then it starts to rain, and we learn something very interesting, really interesting actually. Apparently water is very bad for suits, and if you're caught out in the water, basically it's your worst nightmare. If you're in a fucking suit with all this fucking like chemical radiation, whatever the fuck it is, it'll fucking kill you. It'll make it so that your suit is basically shit and useless. So pretty interesting. So rain's basically the last thing you want to get caught in this fucking city. So basically, she goes up to the top, whole gun thing, and then little girl comes out, and she's calling her auntie, and then it gets into this like whole situation where basically she doesn't want to leave and she doesn't want to get caught. It's like you'll take her from us, and then we'll be in jail and she'll be alone, and I don't want that to happen. And the entire time, this little girl and even her herself are feeling pretty bad, and the little girl's almost out of oxygen, but I believe they're also close to one of the spike zones, and so that's a very bad place for her to be. But also, the little girl is running out of oxygen, and she's just breathing heavily, and like smoke's coming out and shit. And then and basically it was going like back and forth between like the reason why they're living, kind of. And then what got me though, I was like, it wasn't. I'm trying to figure out how they could see this as, like, out of nowhere she's like, but if I don't save you, then I have no purpose. And then she's crying, and I'm like, it makes no sense. Like, I get it, but at the same time, because that's when we found out that she's been training 18 years and she started since she was a little girl. That was important information that we learned. But at the same time, it's like, really, you're gonna be crying like that? I don't know. It just seemed like it was like forced a little bit. I mean, it just seemed like if they left that out, it would have been a lot better of a scene, in my opinion. Like the tears, she could have still said it, but with like an angry voice or something like that, or like in a depressed voice. But the tears just didn't work. I don't know why they just didn't. And then basically she comes to her senses, and then little girl's like, "Auntie, let's go." Little girl Miku, and basically all of a sudden, randomly, after years and years, this building at this exact moment decides, you know what, fuck it, I'm collapsing out of fucking nowhere. The moment after she drops the gun. And no, you're not gonna fucking tell me because this bitch dropped a gun and this building went down. And that was definitely not fucking coincidence. It was magical, and fuck it. Anyway, this fucking building coming down. Basically, when it's all over and the dust is settled and the military's coming in, shit's about to get done. And basically, the building's like basically cut in half, and Ibarra is holding on to this woman, and this woman is holding on to this girl. And she's holding on to her like this, like on her side with her arm like back here. And we can obviously tell that she's using her left hand, of course, to hold her position. Or keep it so that she doesn't slide off. Give her some extra leverage. And the helicopter can't get close, and the woman's like, "Drop me. Just make sure you take this little girl's hand." You know, I was like, that was basically what she was doing. And then she's crying, tears fall onto her helmet, and she lets go, and she doesn't have the little girl anymore. But it was emotional, yes. Yes, but where the fuck, like, who are these characters? Like, we just met these people, like, you know, it was just like it was a random coincidence that they met. Like, it was still good, and it had emotion behind it. Like, they're just finding these people, and this is how selfless actions that they can do. They'll literally, this woman will kill herself in order to save this girl. She would accept death. And I'm digging that, except she's like, no, like, just crying and shit, like, after she let her go, in her hand, and she's still on her fucking side, and I'm like, okay, so where's the little girl right now? Because you can see her falling, and she doesn't obviously have the little girl anymore. But the problem is that when we see Ibarra with her arm like this and shit, she obviously just let her go, and there's her hands open. And so, it's making me wonder, did she pull up the little girl in a minuscule instant? Was it off screen when she pulled up the girl? Or was it just magical that she just appeared, like after the scene where she fell, it was just, she magically just appeared? That was sort of confusing, and they could have did a little bit better at doing that, but nonetheless, it was it was pretty good nonetheless. Anyway, so basically, she saved her, and then helicopter comes, she's getting airlifted off, and now they're going to rescue the father, because they believe they know where he is. And basically the entire time, Ioe is this little girl. She's crying. You know, she lost her auntie and her mom, and so everybody's seeming to disappear. And I was like, no matter what, trust me, we'll save your dad. And then she's going down to Ibarra. Ibarra's got this. She goes down, she lands, she gets to him. He's on the ground, passed out. There's a flare next to him, so he's obviously, for some reason, I believe he was like asking for help. I don't know. Anyway, he's basically like, leave me here. I don't want my daughter to see me like this. I just want to see her smile. And then he dies, and he's like seeing before like she really gets there. He's seeing like his wife and his daughter. And I'm like, yeah. I was feeling for it, except at the exact same time. I don't know. It's a complicated. It's a very complicated thing. I mean, is it really selfish to not wanting your kids to see you in agony at your last minutes of life? It's one of those questions where it's like, would you really want your son or daughter, or would you really think that your son or daughter would like to see you at your last moments? Like I mean, I get the whole thing about how, and that was like honorable, and it's like he just wanted the last thing her daughter remember of him being a good memory, not him like exposed to radiation, dying, coughing up blood and shit. I don't think that that's what he wanted her last image of him to be. And so it's up to you guys to decide how you want to take it. You could take it as selfish, but me personally, I got to give it some credit. I mean, he wanted to be remembered, and even though he's leaving her, at least the last memories that she'll have of him will not be traumatic and horribly, fucking up her psyche. And at the end of the day, Ibar comes back up. She sees Ioe has to fucking tell this little girl basically, father's dead. They talk a little bit. She's crying. And then as they're leaving, apparently the next day, fucking Ioe is telling Ibarra that they got basically like what was it, like customer support or some shit, like what was it, like a review or some shit. I'm trying to remember exactly what the fucking word they used was. Basically, anyway, little girl said thank you and continue on or some shit like that. Anyway, basically Ibarra's walking away like, oh, let's get the fuck out of here. And she's crying and she's walking away, and they're like, catch up. But they don't see her crying, so I'm like, okay. She's trying to be a little, like, hide it. But at the same time, I mean, she did cry. Anyway. And that was the basic episode. Oh yeah. Except for one thing that will hit in the future, of course, which is that apparently that guy that they save suit is stronger than their strongest suit. That battle-on suit when fighting radiation. Which is a big shocker. Just saying. So that being said, overall, I give this episode, I gotta give it 9 out of 10. It's good. It's good. I can't say it was better than good, though. It was just a good episode. It was. We had foreshadowing. And overall, it was basically leading us on to a possible, like, twist. Like, what is this dude? Who's he affiliated with? What's up with the city? Because apparently there are criminals hiding out here now. And so that leads, like, a whole new spectrum of possibilities and like, or situations that these girls get into. Like, maybe they go accidentally enter some gang leader's turf, and now they're surrounded by like 50 motherfuckers with machine guns. Who knows? Who knows? We'll have to see. So with that being said, it's Mr. Motherfucking R. Peace the fuck out. By the way, next fucking video. Oh my god. Oh. It's gonna be the shit. Yo.